All right, what's up, everyone? Max here. This is Wealthier by the Day, day 7. I have 3 topics I'm going to cover today, similar to the previous days. We made it 1 week. It's been fun. It's been cool. I've had a good time thinking of these topics. It's getting more challenging as the days go on, and it's only been a week. So, today, the first topic we are going to cover is the number one habit to financial freedom and retirement, which it's actually not that crazy of an idea. It's something you probably already know. You just maybe haven't put it on paper. So, number 2 is how much money you need to retire. We're going to be discussing the 3% rule. And the third point is going to be discussing the 80-20 rule and how that can apply to your investments and your personal finance. So first, like, comment, subscribe. I always forget to say that. If you like the video, please like it, leave comments, let me know other topics you might be interested in hearing about, and if I know a thing or two about them, I'll talk about them. So anyways, we'll get into it. So the number one habit to financial freedom and retirement: consistency. You need to be consistent, and consistency in general in life is probably the most important thing, or most important quality to success in any given thing. And usually it's consistency in a very narrow focus, like being consistent in a very small niche space typically tends to give you huge results. So like consistency in regard to your income, you need to consistently be bringing in income, right? You need to be bringing in revenue to your household, to your household business, because like your house itself, your life with your partner, even if you're just a single person, that's your business. So you need to be bringing in revenue, and you need to be investing that money consistently, right? So like, let's say you have a lapse in income, chances are you're probably not going to be investing any money because you had a lapse in income. So consistent income, incredibly important, and consistent increases in income over time, because consistent increases in income over time mean consistent increases in the amount of money you're investing in the market, which can help facilitate compound interest that much more. And roll into our next point, you'll be able to potentially retire early if you can, you know, essentially you utilize compound interest in your favor and bring in enough revenue to pump into the market. So that, right, nothing groundbreaking, but really the number one habit to financial freedom is just being consistent with bringing money into your hands and then putting it into good investments. And I mean, all this stuff always ties together, the 3 topics I'm going to cover. So we'll see how they kind of relate. So the next one is, that was pretty quick. That was a relatively quick one. So the next one is, how much money do you need to retire? So there's a concept called the 3% rule. And the 3% rule basically states, you could, like, if you have a portfolio of $1 million, you could, like, you basically need to figure out what your average monthly living expenses are and then relate that to your total portfolio amount. So let's say you have a portfolio of $1 million and you're applying the 3% rule. That means you're going to be pulling out $30,000. I'm sorry, it's not a month, it's a year. Annually. So that would mean, inversely, that you're going to be living on $30,000 a year, which is not reasonable for the vast majority of people. I'm talking more in a Western context, of course. That's where my experience lies, right? I'm from the United States, so that's kind of what I'm alluding to. But, that doesn't seem reasonable. A $1 million portfolio, you can pull out $30,000 a year. It's not going to work. So I actually created some fictitious scenarios that will likely apply to people. So let's say, for example, you have $50,000 of expenses in a year, and that's how much you're living off of. You would need $1.7 million to make that happen. And just some rough figures. So let's say you're investing $2,000 a month. That'd be approximately $500 a week. Let's say you have like a 6% ROI. Let's just assume a 6% ROI. Some people might say that's low. Some people might say that's even kind of high. It would take you 30 years to get to a $1.7 million portfolio. So you could pull out once you get that portfolio amount of $1.7 million, you could then start pulling out $50,000 a year to live off of, and you would not need any additional income, which there's a lot of variables in there. This is very high level. Like we're not getting into the weeds at all. This is just very general. Okay, so $50,000 worth of living expenses, you need a portfolio of $1.7 million, and it will take 30 years to get there. So that would mean if that's my situation, I'm 28, I would be 58 when I could get to that amount, and I would retire at 58. Okay, that's pretty average. But me, I want more than $50,000 a year for sure. I think with inflation and everything, I think that's an incredibly low number. Let's say you need $80,000 a year to live. You would need a $2.7 million portfolio, and that would take you 35 years. So I think a big takeaway here is that's $1 million more than the previous example portfolio value, and you're living on $30,000 more a year, but it only takes you 5 more years to get there. That means in 5 years, you're going to make $1 million. Why? Compound interest. Simple. The bigger the snowball gets, the bigger it tends to get, right? Like it's the snowball effect. So I just thought that was interesting. And that's under the same assumption that you're investing $2,000 a month and have a 6% ROI. Last example, let's say you need $100,000 a year to live, which is what I would like to plan for. I'd like $100,000 a year to live. That's just, I didn't do any research. I didn't do any cost analysis, right? Like that's just in my head. I'm like, okay, $100,000 a year, that seems reasonable. You would need $3.3 million a year to do that. Although it would only take you 37 years to get to that amount using the same constant variables we're using, $2,000 a month and 6% ROI. That is $600,000 more dollars, and you just had to wait 2 more years to get it. So this should tell you a few things. One, it's a testament to compound interest, right? Like 5 years to get $1 million, and then another 2 years to get $600,000 more dollars. If anything, even if you aren't living on $100,000, it's going to be very tempting not to work a little bit more if that's what we're looking at, right? Like, and this is under the assumption that once you like up to this point, you're putting income into your portfolio, right? Like $2,000 a month. And the principal is not going to have a huge effect, obviously, but that you're still pumping money into the portfolio. What this also tells me is you're better off. You're better off assuming higher living expenses and working a little bit longer so you can take advantage of that compound interest while you still are putting income into the market. So that's the 3% rule. Obviously, like your ROI is variable, your monthly investment amount, a lot of people aren't going to be able to invest $2,000 a month. Unfortunately, that's $24,000 a year. Some people, maybe it's a little more like $1,000 a month, even $500 a month. So that's going to skew these numbers even greater. You have to understand, which it's kind of bleak, but that would suggest to me that most people are going to be working into their 60s and 70s, or they're never going to stop working. They're always going to have some source of income, which even if I hypothetically was able to retire early, I would want income coming in from different places. My approach would be to monetize the things I'm a little more interested in rather than just having a job that I'm not necessarily the most interested in, like kind of like a hobby job would be ideal. Anyway, so take all of that. I mean, I wouldn't say with a grain of salt, but it's kind of like high level just to throw some numbers at you so you can get a feel for it. But 3% rule, it's pretty reputable. Like plug in some numbers for yourself. See what you have to do. Reverse engineer some of this information. And just, you might be 20 years old, but it doesn't hurt to know the numbers, right? Like it's a good exercise, if anything. So anyways, that was the second point. The last point is the 80-20 rule. So I'm reading this book right now called the 80-20 Principle. I just started reading it, but has really resonated with me because it's something I already kind of knew, but it's just reading it in a book is like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, that makes sense. So like the 80-20 rule essentially states that like 20% of your effort accounts for 80% of your results or 80% of your productivity, however you want to look at it. For example, let's say you're trying to grow a YouTube page like I'm kind of doing right now. I'm going to do a ton of stuff. I'm going to put a ton of effort into it. And only 20% of that effort is really going to account for 80% of the results. And I know that. Like I've grown Instagram pages and you learn what works and you learn what doesn't work. And it's hard because you kind of have to do trial and error to some extent. It's like there's information out there, there's tips. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to just go and make some mistakes. And the best experience is just doing, in my opinion. And certain mistakes you have to learn yourself. That's just kind of my opinion. But anyways, in an investment context, this would mean that 20% of your investments, I guess, over your lifetime would generate 80% of your returns. And think of it this way, it's like as you're younger and you get older, you get more efficient with the way you invest your money. So when you're younger, you're putting your money in places where maybe you're not getting a huge ROI, like, or maybe you're losing money on the investment because it's a kind of a foolish investment. I've been there. I've lost money on stock investments because I didn't really understand what I was putting my money into, right? Like, it happens. But over time, you get more efficient and you identify what works and you identify what doesn't work. And that's kind of where that 20% comes from. Is like you identify the 20% that works, and then you hammer in that, you just hammer it in, you know? It's like once you find what works, you spam that resource and you keep pumping it, right? Like, and if it works, it works. That's right. If it works, it works. So that's kind of just kind of high level what the 80-20 principle is. It's something I'll probably talk about more as these videos go on and as I get deeper into the book, because I just think it's such an interesting concept. And it's one of those things where you live it and you do it, and then you read it and you're like, oh yeah, that, like, it totally just, it opens your mind a little bit. It's pretty interesting. So those were our 3 points. The first was number one habit to financial freedom: consistency. Duh, not groundbreaking. Keep it simple though, right? Things should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. I think Albert Einstein said that. The second one was how much money do you need to retire, kind of reviewing the 3% rule and some concrete examples. And the third one was the 80-20 rule, just kind of a brief introduction to it, and kind of how that can play out in your investments. So those were the 3 points of the day. This was day 7. Please like, comment, subscribe. I hope you're enjoying these videos. Again, comment, let me know what you want to hear about. I'm gonna make one of these every day. I don't care what. I'm hoping to do this for 365 days straight and just see what happens. I really love the YouTube idea of like a series where you just do a daily thing every day. It's just, I don't know. It's like I was saying, it's like, it's very niche. It's very kind of like your scope is pretty narrow. So I really like that. Anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you later.